Hi, welcome to another Colors of Prague. I'm Louis Paul. So today's episode, Season 3, Episode 25. Um, going to discuss a few of the Jethro Tull anniversary box sets. There's a lot of them, so I only originally picked 3. Somehow I ended up doing 4, and so I'm going to try to keep this from being too bloody long. So Ian Anderson formed his first band, The Blades, in 1963. By 1965, keyboard player John Evans joined with Anderson, and the band, they changed their name to the John Evan Band, and then later the John Evans Smash. This has been documented. By 1967, that band dissolved, and Anderson met bass player Glenn Cornick, drummer Clyde Bunker, and guitarist Mick Abrahams, all from other bands from the London area, and they formed a group with a variety of names. There were only so many clubs back in those days, mid-60s. So being a blues rock group, like the John Evan Band and the John Evan Smash, they changed their name from night to night, often playing the same club days later as another band, but they were the same band. So alternating as either Ian Henderson's Bag of Blues, and this is true, a booking agent didn't pay much attention, and he thought Ian Anderson's name was Ian Henderson, so that's how they got booked. Candy Colored Rain was another name, and Navy Blue. By 1968, the band changed their name to Jethro Tull. A booking agent who was a history buff came up with that. Apparently, there really was a Jethro Tull in Old English history who was a bit of an eccentric. He was a farmer who invented a wheeled machine to improve the planting and sowing of seeds. By the time the band played residence gigs at famed clubs like the Marquee, English folk music began to creep into their musical sound. Legend has it that Ian Anderson's fondness for jazz, and especially psychedelic jazzman and multi-instrumentalist Roshan Roland Kirks, who had a semi-improvisational style and a habit of both breathing and speaking while blowing in and out of saxophones and flutes. This led Anderson to pick up the flute and teach himself how to play. Besides singing lead vocals, he already played guitar, acoustic mainly, and harmonica. It's said he got the one-legged stance, crossing one knee over the other, by watching blues harmonica players do the same thing. I've not seen that many blues harmonica players live, but back in those days, I'm sure black bluesmen toured Europe and London and France, and maybe that was a thing, but probably sitting down. But I guess Anderson adapted that to be standing up. We're getting to the music. So if you didn't know about Toll, Ian Anderson's clothing also added to the eccentric appearing stage presence. Since English folk and blues and other forms of music were entering into the mix, and remember, named after an English farmer from the 18th century, Anderson's clothing took on a mock mix of London mod fashion and Victoria-era rags. Over the next decades, Jethro Tull will be around, sometimes with a variety of lineup changes, but undoubtedly their first 10 albums, released between 1968 and 1977, contain their most memorable music. But I'm not here to discuss every Tull album, but I will discuss some of the anniversary releases, as I said on the outset. This was Tull's first album, released in 1968, and I got the Steven Wilson remix treatment. It's like a book. Now this was released in 2018. This was the then 50th anniversary edition. It features a lot of stuff. It's got lots of discs. If you are at all into prog, then you know that Steven Wilson, who remixed this music, comes from Porcupine Tree, and he's been spending time when not working on his solo albums or touring with currently a reformed Porcupine Tree. He remixes early recordings by, King Crimson, Tull, and even Chicago. This 4-disc set features 3 CDs and 1 DVD. Disc 1 features 16 tracks, which are remixes of the song on the first album, alternate takes, and more. My Sunday Feeling, Dharma for one, and a song for Jeffrey are standouts, and they're familiar Tull songs. And it's nice to hear different versions of Ian Anderson's take on Roland Kirk's Serenade for a Cuckoo. Disc 2 features music from a BBC session, radio spots, and more alternate takes. Disc 3 features more of the same, including a 2008 Steven Wilson remaster done in mono. There's a DVD featuring 38 songs. 27 of them get the Steven Wilson remix in 4.1 and 5.1 surround sound and high bit range mixes, and further high bit remixes, all different from the original 1969 stereo versions. Also, there's a book, you can't remove it, which is a shame, and it's about 95 pages, very small typeface for us aging rockers, loaded with photos, but lots of information. It's lots of reviews, interviews, and what was going on that led up to the recording of the original first album, how Mick Abrahams joined, where he joined from, then he left, and they interview a lot of the band members, which is quite nice. So there's a lot of information here. I just wish it could be removed, because if you want to sit down and read it, you got to keep the discs from falling out of the trays. But that was the first one. This was. Benefit was their third album and released in 1970. It was the second album with Martin Barre, as Mick Abrahams had left the band after this was, for a heavier blues rock sound. He joined a band he started called Bloodwind Pig. The 2021 40th anniversary of Benefit features 4 CDs and 2 DVDs. It's a little thicker, and it has about a booklet about 100 pages long. This is, the 50th. This is the 50th anniversary. It's a nice photo of Tull in here. Ian Anderson, actually. So this is fully loaded. 4 CDs, 2 DVDs. It makes an elaborate set. If I haven't mentioned it, and I did, all of these Steven Wilson remixes also feature approximately 100-page books in the spine of the box, which again means you can't remove them. And so disc 1 features Steven Wilson remixes of the original album, plus songs that didn't make it on there, plus single versions for both intended for the UK and the US. Disc 2 features more singles, some obscure radio promo spots, and radio versions of songs, different from what was on the album. The third CD disc features Steven Wilson remixes from a 1970 Tanglewood live show. Only 8 songs there. CD4 is a much bootlegged Aragon Ballroom show in Chicago in 1970. Unfortunately, that's in mono, but it runs 11 songs. DVD 1 features the 2013 remix of the album, some songs in DTS and Dolby AC3, 5.1, and transfers of both the UK and US albums, which apparently were different, and 9624 LPCM. The last DVD, the second one, features a video from the Tanglewood show and lossless audio, once again tweaked by Wilson in stereo this time, and 5.1. So it's almost on the second DVD, the Tanglewood show sounds much better than it does on CD3. I don't know why they didn't apply a stereo mix to the. I mean, there is a stereo mix, but just why they did not apply some of the better remix. The DVD has a much better remix. So again, overall, aside from the mono audio of the Aragon Ballroom, probably working with limitations of that Chicago show, it's probably so far, it is my personal favorite of the Steven Wilson remixes. And for 2 years in a row, it made my 10 best end of year list. Thick as a Brick, originally from 1972, pardon me, was released in 2012. This is the 40th anniversary box set. This one's a bit different. Aside from the 100-page book, again, quite well illustrated. You know, shows the band played. The first somewhat 40 pages or so is a reproduction of a newspaper. You guys remember this? The original album had a fold-out newspaper. This whole thing is reproduced in here. I didn't remember it being so big. I don't remember what happened to my newspaper that came with the original Thick as a Brick. Was it that long? Pardon me again. Anyway, the rest of the booklet, interviews, etc. Pardon me again. So, the details of the recording of the album, associated tour, etc., as in the other box sets. This is the least fully loaded version of all these Steven Wilson boxes I've come across. It only has one CD featuring a then current Steven Wilson 2012 remix of the material. Recall, Thick as a Brick consisted of two side-long suites, part 1 and part 2. So it's on one CD. It's one straight-through listen. Here is a DVD audio version with several mixes of the whole thing in 5.1 Dolby Digital, 5.1 DTS, and the stereo 9624 PCM. So Thick as a Brick was a concept album about the British upper class versus the lower class. It was intended as one long 40-minute piece, but back in the day you had to flip the vinyl, so it was only so much quality music can fit on a side, hence part 1, part 2. There was a newspaper originally included with the recording, but as I just mentioned, I had Thick as a Brick when it came out, and I remember a newspaper. I don't remember it being that big or that thick, and that would be a very costly promotional item, right? John Evans rejoined Tull, and at some point in time, so his keyboard playing, especially the Hammond, was very welcome. So the last one I'm going to discuss today is 1980s A, or A la mode. Again, it's a thick one. And this was released in 2021. I guess everybody, including Steven Wilson, due to COVID, they had to find ways to spend their time. And so he just sat down and remixed music for other artists. This is 3 CDs and 3 DVDs. So this version of Tull features Dave Pegg from Fairport Convention, Nick Drake and Richard Thompson on bass, Eddie Jobson from Curved Air, Roxy Music, Frank Zappa, and UK, the band, on keyboards and violin. It started out as an Ian Anderson solo album, but since 3 longtime band members either quit or were fired, so they don't appear on it. It's another Anderson concept album, but this one is more difficult to swallow. Sci-fi concept recordings about future times, alien contact, flying, rural life on a farm, the lower class people doing happy dance jigs in order to make themselves happy. I know it's a lot. It's a loose fit. But the funny thing was the recording of the songs went on a bit long, so it became a Tull album due to the label requesting a new Jethro Tull record. There's a few good ones here. Working John, Working Joe, Black Sunday. But beyond that, there's not a lot of memorable songs. They did tour relentlessly for about a year or so. So there's that. It's this. Oh, and this booklet is over 100 pages. It's about 110. So it's fully loaded. This 2021 40th anniversary remix hasn't been that long. By Steven Wilson. This is again another thick box thing for your shelf. Disc 1 features a Steven Wilson remix of the entire album and alternate tracks. CDs 2 and 3 feature what seems to be an A-heavy live show at the LA Sports Arena from 1980, stereo remix by Wilson. By the words A-heavy, most of the A album was played on this tour and at this show, with only a few Tull chestnuts in there. Heavy Horses, Locomotive Breath, Aqualung, and Bungle in the Jungle. Curiously, there's no other well-known songs that people would come to hear. So if you weren't a huge fan of A, you went to see the Tull show to enjoy the show. You got very few what we call greatest hits chestnuts. Very few of those there. So DVD 1 is audio only. It features the usual Steven Wilson DTS WAC3 51 and stereo mixes. And DVD 2 is audio only for the LA Sports Arena show. Also in DTS, WAC3, 5.1, and stereo. Now, the third and last DVD features Slipstream. It's a live-action film. Runs about just short of an hour. It was created as, I guess, promotion for this. Was it released in any film theater? Maybe. It was eventually released on VHS. Maybe there was a DVD release in the 80s, but it's a live-action film with concert footage. It's some setup scenes featuring Ian Anderson and band members doing odd things, like being in the airport control tower, sitting in fields, and then the music pops up, the songs pop up, they start singing, and there was some, as I said, live concert footage from one of the tours. The audio was mixed by Wilson in the same combination of audio formats listed above, but you can get to watch the movie this time. One of the few things that they don't have a lot in these representations, these box sets, these Tull box sets, is video footage. So next up, sometime in September, the next anniversary box set, remixed by Steven Wilson, will be Broadsword and the Beast from 1982. That's an 8-disc set. I already know what's in it. I'm curious what it's all going to sound like, because we're at a period where Jethro Tull recordings are always entertaining. He's still performing. The releases stopped for a while. He released some solo albums. Martin Barr left or was asked to leave. So in the last 3 years, there were 2 new releases. One done entirely in lockdown, where Anderson sent stuff to other people and they did their contributions, and one more of a band sounding record. Ian Anderson's voice, he's in his 70s, so there's the time has effect on things, and but when you hear the flute playing and that music kicks in, it's very Tull. It's a Jethro Tull has a very unique sound, and it's so influential on other musicians worldwide, across, everywhere, including PFM, by the way, the Italian band who I discussed in the last program, mentioned actually. So another huge fan of Broadsword and the Beast, and it's going to be a pricey set, eight discs, and we're going to see. We're going to see what the reviews come out, and what people say. I like A, also known as a la mode, by the way. I always remember it as just being A. And there's another one that I'm not as thrilled with, which was Stormwatch, but I did get the box set because I actually got a good deal on that one. So that's today's show, really. Sure, you could read reviews about these online. Oh my gosh. But, listen to me talk about them. This was and Benefit and Thick as a Brick and A. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. A little informative, a little repetitive, but I felt like I wanted to mention what was on each disc, so you got an idea what's, are the DVD audio things repetitive? It's up to you. The sound quality is better, but now everybody's using Blu-ray, so the Blu-ray audio will sound even more tremendous. Again, until next time, thanks for watching The Colors of Prog.